If you haven't had an opportunity to watch Caleb, the Bates Motel episode that aired today, Monday, March 17th, 2014, stop listening now. Major spoilers. Here we go. Norma's brother arrives at the hotel. Norma finds an ally in her efforts to prevent the bypass. Tonight's episode, man, was really, really, really good. They did an amazing job, man, and kind of immediately getting over the strange, I guess you could say, disappearance, if you will, of the character of Bradley. I mean, last week, I like I said, I was just totally in shock after that episode, you know. And what they do just perfectly at the beginning of the episode is they deal with that situation. I'm pretty sure they know that the fans of Bates Motel are mourning the loss of Bradley, are kind of confused, like why it happened, etc., etc. I mean, we know why it had to happen, but we're just like, what? So here's what they did. Last week's episode, Dylan took Bradley to the bus station to get on the bus to head to Boston. And before she boarded the bus to Boston, she wrote a note to Norman and a suicide note. Now, Dylan took the suicide note and some of her clothes and belongings, and he placed them at the beach, I believe. And this episode starts right there. It starts on the beach. It kind of pans to the left. It shows a piece of paper blowing in the wind that is held down by a rock, and then a pile of clothing. So you kind of knew that immediately when you saw that, okay, that's Bradley's clothing. And then you see Norman sitting down at his table, eating some breakfast. That's when the character of Emma comes in, and she has a newspaper in her hand, and she's like, "Did you see this?" And then she puts it down on the table, and Norman sees that it says search ends. It says yeah, hold on one second. Yeah, it says search in, man, suicide notes, clothing found, missing teen presumed dead, and that's the White Pine Bay current news edition, which is also the final edition, and it has a picture of Bradley on the front of the paper, and that's it, man. It says it right there, suicide note, clothing found, missing teen presumed dead, man, and it says search in. So that's it, man. That's the last time that you'll probably hear about Bradley mentioned. And what they do very well is they allow the characters to mourn in their own ways. Now, obviously, check this out. We know that Norman Bates doesn't really mourn a character. Now, what I mean by that is that he doesn't mourn in the same way that I guess us normal human beings mourn. He mourns in a more sick, twisted, demented reality of mourning, man. It's this, you know, he doesn't really show any emotion in front of people. He shows emotion later on, you know, behind closed doors. And since this situation is a little bit different than the situation with Miss Watson, Norman doesn't mourn because he knows that it's not true. Now, check this out, man. Emma is the one that is mourning in this episode. And the reason why is because Emma, to make a long story short, she is a little bit upset that because even in death, she still doesn't like the character of Bradley. She still doesn't like Bradley. She just still doesn't appreciate her or understand her or just even gives a crap, I guess you can say. But she is sad that Bradley's gone and that they didn't have an opportunity to, I guess you can say, get to know each other, you know, and that's got to be hard, obviously, you know, because you're going to school with someone, you see someone every day, and if that really happens in you know, real life, obviously, people are gonna be like, oh man, everybody, all parties involved will be affected, man, whether you like the person or not. Now, we have to back up and go to last week's episode again, and we have to read the note from Bradley to Norman. She says, as she writes, she says, "Norman, you are the best person I have ever known, Bradley." And that's how she left. She left on a positive note with Norman. It was a great experience because Norman really cherished that note. He cherished the time that they had together, even though it wasn't a lot. And what's kind of cool is that as Bradley's character, you know, moved on to you know, better and brighter things in her life, another chapter, I guess you can say. And she closed this chapter. Well, whenever Norman helped her out to go to the store and get those supplies for changing and dyeing her hair, you know, the beauty products, health products, all that stuff, he met a cashier, or he was introduced to a cashier, and that cashier's name was Cody. Now, it was kind of, like I said that to myself, and I was live tweeting that also. I said, you know, this cashier has spent a long time on camera, and it was just one of those things that you kind of notice as, you know, you watch TV for a long time, and you get to, you know how television works and all that good stuff, and movies and all that stuff. They're not going to really let an extra have that much time on screen. All right, it's just not going to happen. Okay, usually if there's a cashier in the line, they usually don't say anything, and then the focus is kind of panned back. It's from a distance that they see, you know, the main character checking out in the register and stuff like that. So with this one, they actually spent time, and they showed, you know, how the cashier individually, you know, checked in all the items, and then she was looking kind of weird and strange at Norman because, you know, he's sitting there getting female products, and then he said, "Oh, it's from my mother." And he was really, you know, nervous and everything, so obviously she didn't believe him. Well, fast forward to this episode, okay, which I guess we can say maybe, let's call it a couple of days, maybe a week later, and we can see that Cody now plays a major role inside of Norman's life. And what I mean by that is, it's not really that far in the future. I mean, it's probably maybe a couple of days, but the character of Cody definitely has an influence on Norman. Obviously, I think Norman likes her. She thinks that Norman is gay. She has a gay boyfriend, and the gay boyfriend hits on Norman, and Norman grabs his hand and violently throws it off, and he just doesn't understand it. And then that's when Cody was like, "Well, I thought that you were gay," and Norman was like, "No, I'm not gay," and then they started kind of laughing at that. But then all of a sudden, you know, you arrive at their house, in the front of Cody's house, and then she kind of explains about how you don't have to take things seriously. And check this out, man. Cody actually breaks down the walls of Norman Bates. He doesn't even know what's happening. She, you know, plays with him. She's playing with us. Pretty much she's toying with him just like Bradley did, but not in that kind of, you know, nothing's going to happen here way. You know, she's actually flirting with him, which is going to probably lead to disaster. But I don't think she knows that as of right now, her character. She says, "You don't have to take things so seriously, Norman." And then he says, "Yeah, I do. I choose to. You know, I want to. You know, that's why that's why I'm so serious, is because I choose to. Norman Bates, I'm the one that does this." And now we kind of understand, you know, that's why, you know, there is no joking around with Norman Bates. You know, if he hears, you know, like in this episode, he heard some arguments between Dylan and Norma, and he reacted violently because everything is serious. You know, nothing is a joke, nothing is a game, you know. So, you know, when you look back at the relationship between him and Bradley, Bradley's character treated that as a game. You know, it wasn't serious to her. It was just, you know, oh, this is just a fling, this is just whatever, a one night stand or whatever. When Norman Bates was like, "Yo, we in this for life, B. All right." You know, this, you know, if I'm gonna make love to you or whatever, it's forever, you know. And it's just crazy. Now let me kind of go back, all right, and start back after Emma, you know, gives the newspaper clipping to Norman. She lets him know that she's mourning, and then she goes into this process, you know, throughout the episode of creating this this moment at the beach where you can kind of remember Bradley and pretty much just, you know, mourn for her a little bit. And she ends up getting drunk, and and she throws up. But she also lets us know that, you know, she still doesn't like the character of Bradley. She doesn't like Bradley. She doesn't respect her, even in death. And but she still is mourning, and that's a good thing. We then see, after she leaves the house and Norman finishes eating his cereal, which is absolutely hilarious, because, you know, it's Norman sitting down eating cereal, and it's just old school. Norman takes the clipping. Check this out. Emma was about to take the paper, the newspaper that says, you know, Bradley's dead, and talks about Bradley. Instead of letting Emma take the newspaper and disposing of it, Norma says, no, 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 leave that, leave that. I'll take care of that. Don't worry. And it was just one of those things because you know that he has the clipping. Well, I don't know if he has it anymore, but I'm pretty sure that I think Norma put it back underneath his mattress, but I'm not sure. I mean, we'll find out about that probably later on in the episode when he starts looking for all that stuff, or later on in the season, I should say. But he takes the clipping, man. So now he has two clippings. He has a clipping of Miss Watson, who's actually dead, and he has Miss Watson's pearls, and he has now a note from Bradley. And then now he has a clipping from Bradley. So we're starting to see a pattern form here that with victims or people that he cares about or women in particular, and that's what I think is very, very important. You know what I'm saying? Like they're like these little pieces, these little trophies he's starting to collect, man. And this kind of it's bigger than that too because it's growing because down in that basement, which is another trophy room of dead things, and he says that in here. He says his hobby or his passion or whatever is just rebuilding something you take apart first. Check this out. Just rebuilding something you take apart first, okay? And now just think about that for a second, man. You take apart a body and you reconstruct it. We're about the flesh and the insides and the guts of these animals, and then you stuff it and you and you rebuild it. I'm telling you, man, it's so sick and twisted, man. It's so sick and twisted. But hey, man, this is Bates Motel, and it's gonna get worse than this, man. So just hold on. Okay, so moving on. We know that from season 1. Norma Bates tells a story to Norman Bates about her brother. Her brother forced Norma to have sex with her, or excuse me, to have sex with him, and repeatedly, over and over and over again, he raped her, and we didn't hear anything about this brother. Didn't have a face, didn't have a name, and then all of a sudden, at the end of last week's episode, which was the end of Bradley, where Bradley's chapter ended, was the beginning of this new character called Caleb. Caleb is Norma's brother. The same brother that raped and forced Norma to have sex with him is now in the town, man, and he's wandering around trying to find Norma for some reason, man. Now, check this out, man. Dylan is the first person to meet Caleb at the Bates Motel. And, you can see that Caleb is looking around. He's like, searching, very thoroughly, for for Norma or for someone at the Bates Motel. And then he doesn't really approach, Dylan. He just kind of looks past him, just looking for, he's looking for something particular. He's not there to check in or none of that stuff. He's just looking for someone. And then Dylan's like, hey, can I help you? And he says, yeah, I'm looking for Norma Bates. And he's like, is she here? And he's like, no, she's not here or whatever. But I'll be here all day. So he kind of has a standoff with Caleb. Like he's not going to move. And then he kind of introduces himself. And then Caleb now knows that that's his uncle. And when he goes and he takes Caleb into the house, into Norma's house, they sit down at the dinner table, the same room where Norma killed that guy at a long time ago. And what was kind of cool about this, man, is that it seems like the violence starts in the house, man. And let me tell you why. Okay, so Norma, man, she comes in, she's having a great day, man. She just found out that even though she didn't get the lead role with the singing or the play or whatever you want to call it, she just got a brand new friend named Christine Long. And Christine Long was the same person that jumped up and she was clapping like, bravo, bravo, you sing so excellently and I want to cast you or whatever. Well, Christine Long says, I'm going to quit the play and I'm going to go do, other things with my life. And do you want to hang out or whatever? And Norma accepts. She goes to the grocery store. She comes back to the house. She walks in. She starts hearing talking. And then she walks in and then Dylan stands up and, or actually, no, Dylan sits down, and then Caleb immediately turns around like so fast. He stands up, he turns around, and Norma's face and her whole entire complexion, her whole entire demeanor, man, just turns. I'm talking about ghost white. Like it was the fear of God, man, got put through her, man, and she was just mouth dropped, jaw dropped, you know, and she just reacts, man. She reacts to seeing this person, this very bad person, man, named Caleb, man, her brother or whatever. He's like, hey, Norma. And after that, she just, you know, get out, get out, get out. Ah. And then she forces him out the house. She doesn't let him talk. And whenever Dylan, you know, tries to ask her why, what's the reason behind this? Because I just met this guy for the first time, and you said that he wasn't alive, he never existed. And instead of you telling me what I need to hear to justify your reaction, you know, Norma doesn't. She treats, you know, Dylan again like a, I don't know if we want to say like a kid, almost like a less than human being. Like, I don't have to tell you anything, you just, you know, obey me or whatever. I don't know. And you know, you got to think Dylan's, he's a grown man. He's not a child. And that, you know, makes Dylan react to that situation with Norma in the entire opposite way that Norma would have wanted it to happen. So what ends up happening, I'm going to stay on this storyline and fast forward all the way towards the end, okay? So just stay with me. Dylan goes and he tries to make a connection with Caleb. He wants to know more, just like, you know, a child usually does. And Caleb begins to sell himself, man, as this really good guy, man. And he tells Dylan his side of the story first. In his side of the story, Caleb blames Norma's father for all of the raping and for all of the bad stuff. And he paints himself as this person that had his hands tied and couldn't do anything, and that's the reason why all this stuff happened. And, you know, Norma kind of blames him for it, but it really falls on their father. Now, check this out. Caleb also comes in there. he comes into this town, and he begins to preach about this pyramid scheme, okay? And this pyramid scheme involves this house in Costa Rica with this divorced couple who, if I get this money, I'll be able to, you know, have a brand new start, okay? And you got to think, Dylan, his whole entire process, his thought process is that, you know, his character wants a brand new start. His character, you know, wants nothing more but to have a great life, because life has been hell for him, and he wants nothing but to provide for Norman and probably get Norman away from Norma. Now, this is what I love about that, man, is because, you know, Dylan's character is so vulnerable. You know, he's a powerful, strong character, but he's also very vulnerable, and that leads him to giving Caleb $11,000 and some change, okay? And it's crazy, man. And what ends up happening, as soon as Dylan gives Caleb the money, Caleb doesn't even really hesitate. He looks at the money, he's like, whoa, this is too much. Reaches over the table and grasps Dylan, man, in this hug, and bear hugs him. And it's that first sign of embrace. But it's an embrace from family. That's what is so important to understand about that. It's in his embrace. He's being embraced by a father type figure, his uncle. Okay, the first male in his family, I guess you could say, that really gave him love. Norma hasn't done that. He's been, you know, neglected, and he takes it full-heartedly. So now he's on Caleb's side. So he says to Caleb, I'm going to try to talk to Norma. So we have to sit down. We have to try to figure this out. So he convinces Caleb to stick around, and then he goes and he informs Norma of the situation. This is at the end of the episode. Norma reacts by, you know, saying that, you know, Dylan, you don't know what you've done. He's a bad man. And, you know, he's like, what are you talking about, Norma? What are you talking about? This doesn't make any sense. And, you know, he told me about your father. He told me about the situation that went on with you guys. And she's like, he's lying. And then she yells out, you know, he raped me. He raped me. You don't understand. He raped me. And then he's like, you're a liar. And then all of a sudden, check this out. While they're in the kitchen, all right, it goes back to the kitchen, like I was saying a little bit earlier, the kitchen where Norma killed that man, and Norma and Norman covered up the murder. Norman comes in the house at that time. He starts hearing commotion inside of the kitchen, but obviously all he's hearing is that Norma is screaming at the top of her lungs, and she's being hurt by, you know, emotionally, not physically at this point, but just emotionally. And Norman, he just reacts just like that. And he begins to run into the into the kitchen, and he begins to, you know, scuffle with Dylan, man. Now, what's crazy about this is that it's a different situation now, because first Dylan was able to overpower Norman, but now we see that in season 2, it's different, man. Norman has this, I don't know, he's unlocking new strength, man, and he overpowers Dylan, man, and he slams him on the floor. It's a big thud, and all of a sudden, man, you see Dylan on the floor, man, like his back of his head hits the floor. Norman's on top of him, and he's punching him. He's repeatedly punching him. You know, and Norma, she's screaming at the top of her lungs, "No, Norman, it's okay, stop," and nothing's working. So what does Norma do? She goes into her toolbox of knowledge, and she drops the biggest bomb on the fans, the show, Norman, the characters. She yells out, "It's his father. Caleb is Dylan's father." Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, this is absolutely nuts, man. From here on out, this show is just, it's taking off, man, to some brand new places, man. I really hope you guys enjoyed this part 1 of this podcast, man. I got to stop here because we went way over time. That's 20 minutes, man, of just talking about that. But I mean, like I say, Bates Motel is such a great show that you can't help but talk about it. And what's kind of interesting, man, that's going on with A&E is that the times have changed for Bates Motel again. It's heading to a 10 o'clock time slot. Now, I don't know how that's going to affect everybody. Right now, it's 9 o'clock for me. I don't know if it's going to be 10 o'clock at night from here on out, but next week, that's where it goes to. I don't know what that's about, but we'll definitely find out about it as soon as A&E responds to my thousands of tweets and in DMs. Yeah, hey guys, listen, man, continue, man, to support Bates Motel, man, using the hashtag Bates Motel, okay? Look in the description box for all that information. You can shop A&E TV inside of the description box. The link is there. Support the show, man. If we want more seasons, you got to support the show, man. Go buy the season 1 Blu-ray, DVD, etc. And just continue, man, to live tweet, watch this thing live, get the numbers up, and let's continue to have a great season 2. I'll have a part 2 of this talking about Emma, Cody, Christine Long, and some other things that I just want to get off my chest, man, about Bates Motel. We're out of here, guys. Thanks again for watching, and yeah, Bradley's not coming back, man. That kind of sucks.